Hi. I'm Sundai Green, Sir Green's daughter. You guys heard his side of the story, his testimony going through this entire what is it called miraculous recovery, and like through the blog that he started, which was a great idea. So let's see. Let's just start in the beginning. When he was diagnosed in, I think it was March, when he told us, it was crazy because I had never seen him weak before. And so then I just kind of panicked and was like, okay, well, like we're gonna make it through this. Like there's treatment. It's not fatal. It's not like um, it's not the end. So we still have time to fix this. We still have stuff we can do. So we started doing chemotherapy, and then doctors like laid out plans and stuff for us to do. So mom would take him to the hospital every other day, which I mean he told you guys about that in the video, in all the videos. Um, but what he didn't talk about is what happened at home. So here at home, most of the stuff fell on me. At least that's what it felt like. It fell on me. Sorry about that. I had to get the lighting over there. So where was I? Ah, yes. Chemotherapy every other day was hectic, and my mom wasn't home a lot. So I took care of a lot of the dishes and stuff. That, the laundry, making sure the kids got their homework and Awana and stuff done like that. All that went on, and that went fine. We were thinking, okay, we're gonna beat this in 8 weeks. We're gonna be done with the chemotherapy. And at the point, I wasn't really thinking about what happens after chemo. I was just thinking that he'd be done with cancer. So then summer comes around, and it is time for camp. So Sir and I raised money to go to Young Life Camp, which was awesome. I recommend it to everybody. It was a great week. So at Young Life Camp, I remember towards the end, I was so happy to be there because back at home there was so much drama about getting all that stuff done, and I was really feeling the weight on my shoulders. But at camp, I was just my own self, and I could do whatever I wanted, and I could not have to be responsible for other people, for other kids and stuff. The third day to the end, we were at club and we had the club talk, and he was talking about escape and different things that circumstances that you can't control. Um, the things that people use to escape are like drugs, or maybe just watching TV, or maybe partying all the time just to get away from things that are happening that you can't deal with, you can't control. And so I never realized it until I went to camp, but that's what I was doing. I've been watching a lot of TV and wanting to go out with my friends all the time, and I didn't want to go back home because camp was so nice. It was a perfect place to escape to because I had no internet there. No one trying to take my attention, no one trying to get me to do stuff for them. I could really just be myself and enjoy life. So, but I remember my Young Life leader pulling me aside and having a one-on-one with me. And she asked me what was going on at home, and I explained all the stuff and why I didn't want to go back home. And she told me about how God wants to take those burdens and let me still be myself no matter where I am. So that really helped, and I did that. I cast everything out, and I told God about everything I was worried about and everything that I felt like I needed to do on my own. And He took it all off my shoulders. And so when I went home, I was able to be myself and still enjoy life, still enjoy being a 15-year-old girl, and not have to feel like I was the parent or adult at home. When I got home from the retreat, I tried living every day for him, and it made a huge difference. Everything I said and I did was worth something, and it wasn't just me going through the motions. There was actually purpose behind everything that I did. So things went on like that for a little while after I got home from camp, until my dad got very sick out of nowhere, and he fell one day, and he was very weak and hallucinating, didn't eat much. My mom took him to the hospital, and he was there, and I just figured, oh, I guess he just needs blood work. I guess he just needs some transfusions. Well, my mom called us a day later and had my grandmother come down and take us to the hospital to visit them. My dad was very sick in the hospital, looked very weak, and first of all, that was a huge problem for me because, like I said, he's the strongest man that I knew at the time and that I know now. And then he looked so weak, and so that was huge for me. But mom took us down to the cafe and sat us all down and told us that this could be the last time we see him, and that we needed to be okay with that. And I was not okay with it at all. I was in tears along with everyone else except for Sir, and this really shook me. And so later on in the night, once we got back home with our grandmother, I asked him, I said, "How are you so calm? How are you so peaceful and reserved?" And he said, "That's because we can never lose." He told me that no matter what, God has the victory, and that God can either heal him and keep him here, or that God can take him home. And that really rocked my world. And I was like, wow, no matter what happens, Jesus has got this. So I went to God and I was like, God, whatever you're going to do, like, I'm okay because you have it. You have this entire situation. So after I asked him that, and we were at home, I called one of my best friends and went over some Bible verses about hope. And God literally spoke to me straight through his word. And he told me that this wasn't the time for my dad to go home yet, and that he still had more time, and that this was just to teach me that I needed to trust in him. So a few days later, the doctors got back with the lab results and test results, and told my mom that my dad had meningitis. And this was huge, like amazing that the cancer was not in his bone marrow or in his bloodstream or in his brain. And that was making him do all this stuff. That it was just meningitis, which sounds crazy because meningitis is not something that you joke around with. It's not something that's a little thing. But in this case, it was a huge relief and a huge blessing. So the doctors gave him medicine to get rid of it, and we were right back on the track. So my mom took him in to get blood transfusions and his regular dose of chemo, I guess, to get him ready for the bone marrow transplant. So that visit that was supposed to be just a regular checkup and transfusion ended up being a staying visit. And they stayed, and the lab results came back from their blood test and the bone marrow transplant, or the bone marrow test to see if the bone marrow was clear. And it turned out that there was cancer in the bone marrow, but not in the bloodstream yet. So the doctors decided to do one last bout of chemo to try and knock it out once and for all, so we could still do the bone marrow transplant. So mom came home and told all of us, this is right after the snowstorm, mom came home and told all of us that there is a small possibility of this working, and she told us that there were three things that could happen. Either he would get better and we would be able to do the bone marrow transplant, he would stay like this and go to a nursing home, remain like this as in weak, and his mind wouldn't be working right, he would be hallucinating a lot, or he could pass away. So I was, of course, thinking that maybe he's that 1 out of 5% that goes through this Hail Mary of chemo to try and get rid of the last bit of cancer once and for all. So that was my thought process, that he could be this one. Why not? And so I kept praying and I kept hoping in Jesus. And then he was doing all right for a little bit. He was laying in bed, wasn't really talking much, didn't eat much. He didn't really have much of an appetite. And then one night he fell off the bed. And mom took him to the emergency room in Hershey in the middle of the night. And I wasn't here. And sir was out working. And so I get a phone call in the morning telling me that she was at Hershey and what had happened, that he had fallen. So I call one of my friends and I'm like, why is this happening? Like, if God's going to take him, why not just do it? Why go back and forth like this? And she said something that was super meaningful. She said, well, if you knew the outcome in the beginning, would you have fought as hard? And I just thought to myself, no, I mean, I probably wouldn't have. If I knew that it wasn't going to turn out the way I wanted it to, I probably would not have fought half as hard as I'd had, or learned as many lessons as I had, learned to rely on Christ as much as I had. The doctors finally get back to us, and they tell us that the chemo did not work, and the cancer is back in his bloodstream and in his bone marrow, and that he has a few more days left. So mom took us all up to the hospital that day, I think, to tell us and say goodbye to him. And we did. And then we came back home, and 2 days later, Sir and I went to say our goodbyes and have time alone with him. And we did. Now, I say all of this because through this entire process, I learned first to cast all of my worries on God. And I learned second to live every day with purpose and to live for Him, because that's how you have a full life. And then third, I learned that there is more to this life than just having fun. That when you live for something and someone greater, you are rewarded for it. And that after this life, there is so much more, and that there is eternity in heaven with Christ. And I always knew this, but it becomes real when someone that you love is there already. By the time you're watching this, probably already heard that he passed away. Um, but the biggest thing that I learned in all of this is that life is really short, and you have this short little red dash, and that's your life here on Earth. And then you have this entire gray circle comes off, and it's just circles and circles, and it goes on forever, and that's your eternity. This life is so short. So why do you have to be selfish in this life and spend every day doing what you want? But if you live for God in this life, this short little life, that you will be in paradise for eternity. It will be selfish for me to try and keep my dad here with me for a little bit longer on that red dash when I can have him for eternity. It's got to make it through this little red dash. So, I really just made this video because I need people to know that there's more to this life, and it's not just about you, and it's not just about living the best every day. It's about living for someone greater, living for a greater purpose, and making the most of the time that you have here that will reflect what happens for eternity. I don't really have anything else to say. I thank everyone for your donations and for your prayers. They really do help. And God bless.